I had a duty to send it out. Here it is, read to you again. And it's going to start it all over again because people who have not heard it, tuning in for the first time this week, don't know what all this is about, are going to want to get a copy of it. Gee, Raj, that's really great. Could you post it on your website? I do. By the way, this is another thing. I do not have a website. There are a bunch of fraudulent websites out there claiming to be mine. I don't have one. But you won't have any trouble finding it now. This speech is posted on at least 10 different websites. You can get it at the Conservative News Service. You can get it at WorldNetDaily.com. You can get it on Newsmax.com. You can get it at the Harvard Law Review. You can get it any number of places now, easily. But here it is. I remember my son, when he was 5, explaining to his kindergarten class what his father did for a living. My daddy, he said, pretends to be people. And there have been quite a few of them. Prophets from the Old and New Testaments, a couple of Christian saints, generals of various nationalities in different centuries, several kings, 3 American presidents, a French cardinal, and 2 geniuses, including Michelangelo. If you want the ceiling repainted, I'll do my best. There always seem to be a lot of different fellows up here. I'm never sure which one of them gets to talk. Right now, I guess I'm the guy. As I pondered our visit tonight, it struck me. If my Creator gave me the gift to connect you with the hearts and minds of those great men, then I want to use the same gift now to reconnect you with your own sense of liberty, your own freedom of thought, your own compass for what is right. Dedicating the memorial at Gettysburg, Abraham Lincoln said of America, "We are now engaged in a great civil war, testing whether this nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure." Those words are true again. I believe that we are again engaged in a great civil war, a cultural war that's about to hijack our birthright to think and say what resides in your heart. I fear you no longer trust the pulsing lifeblood of liberty inside you, the stuff that made this country rise from wilderness into the miracle that it is. Now, let me back up. About a year ago, I became president of the National Rifle Association, which protects the right to keep and bear arms. I ran for office, I was elected, and now I serve. I serve as a moving target for the media, who've called me everything from ridiculous and duped to a brain-injured, senile, crazy old man. I know I am pretty old, but I sure, Lord, ain't senile. As I've stood in the crosshairs of those who target Second Amendment freedoms, I've realized that firearms are not the only issues. No, it's much, much bigger than that. I've come to understand that a cultural war is raging across our land in which, with Orwellian fervor, certain acceptable thoughts and speech are mandated. For example, I marched for civil rights with Dr. King in 1963, long before Hollywood found it fashionable. But when I told an audience last year that white pride is just as valid as black pride or red pride or anybody else's pride, they called me a racist. I've worked with brilliantly talented homosexuals all my life. But when I told an audience that gay rights should extend no further than your rights or my rights, I was called a homophobe. I served in World War II against the Axis powers. But during a speech, when I drew an analogy between singling out innocent Jews and singling out innocent gun owners, I was called an anti-Semite. Now, everyone I know knows that I would never raise a closed fist against my country. But when I asked an audience to oppose this cultural persecution, I was compared to Timothy McVeigh. From Time magazine to friends and colleagues, they're essentially saying, "Chuck, how dare you speak your mind? You're using language not authorized for public consumption." But I'm not afraid. If Americans believed in political correctness, we'd still be King George's boy subjects bound to the British crown. In his book, The End of Sanity, Martin Gross writes that blatantly irrational behavior is rapidly being established as the norm in almost every area of human endeavor. There seem to be new customs, new rules, and new anti-intellectual theories regularly foisted on us from every direction. Underneath, the nation is roiling. Americans know something without a name is undermining the nation, turning the mind mushy when it comes to separating truth from falsehood and right from wrong, and they don't like it. Let me read a few examples. At Antioch College in Ohio, young men seeking intimacy with a co-ed must get verbal permission at each step of the process, from kissing to petting to final copulation, all clearly spelled out in a printed college directive. In New Jersey, despite the death of several patients nationwide who had been infected by dentists who had concealed their AIDS, the state commissioner announced that health providers who are HIV positive need not tell their patients they're infected. At William and Mary, students tried to change the name of the school team, the Tribe, because it was supposedly insulting to local Indians, only to learn that authentic Virginia chiefs truly liked the name. In San Francisco, city fathers passed an ordinance protecting the rights of transvestites to cross-dress on the job and for transsexuals to have separate toilet facilities while undergoing sex change surgery. In New York City, kids who don't speak a word of Spanish have been placed in bilingual classes to learn their 3 R's in Spanish solely because their last names sound Hispanic. At the University of Pennsylvania, in a state where thousands died at Gettysburg opposing slavery, the president of that college officially set up segregated dormitory space for black students. Yeah, I know, that's out of bounds now. Dr. King said Negroes. Jimmy Baldwin and most of us on the march said black. But it's a no-no now. For me, hyphenated identities are awkward, particularly Native American. I'm a Native American, for God's sake. I also happen to be a blood-initiated brother of the Miniconjou Sioux. On my wife's side, my grandson is a 13th generation Native American with a capital letter on American. Finally, just last month, David Howard, head of the Washington, D.C. Office of Public Advocate, used the word niggardly while talking to colleagues about budgetary matters. Of course, niggardly means stingy or scanty, but within days, Howard was forced to publicly apologize and resign. As columnist Tony Snow wrote, David Howard got fired because some people in public employ were morons who A, didn't know the meaning of niggardly, B, didn't know how to use a dictionary to discover the meaning, and C, actually demanded that he apologize for their ignorance. Now, what does all of this mean? Well, it means that telling us what to think has evolved into telling us what to say. So telling us what to do can't be far behind. But before you claim to be a champion of free thought, tell me, why did political correctness originate on America's campuses? And why do you continue to tolerate it? Why do you, who are supposed to debate ideas, surrender to their suppression? Let's be honest. Who here thinks your professors can say what they really believe? It scares me to death, and should scare you too, that the superstition of political correctness rules the halls of reason. You are the best and brightest. You, here in the fertile cradle of American academia, here in the castle of learning on the Charles River, you are the cream, but I submit that you and your counterparts across the land are the most socially conformed and politically silenced generation since Concord Bridge. And as long as you validate that and abide it, you are, by your grandfather's standards, cowards. Here's another example. Right now, at more than one major university, Second Amendment scholars and researchers are being told to shut up about their findings or they'll lose their jobs. Why? Because their research findings would undermine big city mayors' pending lawsuits that seek to extort hundreds of millions of dollars from firearm manufacturers. Now, I don't care what you think about guns, but if you're not shocked at that, I'm shocked at you. Who will guard the raw material of unfettered ideas if not you? Who will defend the core value of academia if you, supposed soldiers of free thought and expression, lay down your arms and plead, don't shoot me? If you talk about race, it doesn't make you a racist. If you see distinctions between the genders, it does not make you a sexist. If you think critically about a denomination, it does not make you anti-religion. If you accept but don't celebrate homosexuality, it does not make you a homophobe. Don't let America's universities continue to serve as incubators for this rampant epidemic of new McCarthyism. I'll continue with Mr. Heston's speech after this.
You're listening to the EIB Network. It's 119 on 77 WABC.
There's some huge news coming out of the Bose Corporation, the engineering geniuses, and that's what they are, at 800-631-BOSE, have just improved upon perfection. It's called the Bose Wave Radio CD, and it's going to be a winner. Now, this is a technological coup de grace, a CD player built into the Wave Radio without compromising the legendary Bose sound or the compact size. Bose spent more than 18 months re-engineering their patented wave guide system. They did it. They built in a CD player, and they only added a 1/4 inch in height. Now, how's it sound? In one word, it sounds awesome. So pick up your phone, call 1-800-631-BOSE, order the brand new Wave Radio CD. Ask Bose about the 30-day in-home trial. Ask them about the 6-month interest-free payment plan. Call 800-631-BOSE, order the new Wave Radio CD. 800-631-BOSE today. How can anyone prevail against such pervasive social subjugation? Well, the answer's been here all along. I learned it 36 years ago on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., standing with Dr. Martin Luther King and 200,000 people. You simply disobey. Peaceably, yes. Respectfully, of course. Non-violently, absolutely. But when told how to think or what to say or how to behave, we don't. We disobey social protocol that stifles and stigmatizes personal freedom. I learned the awesome power of disobedience from Dr. King, who learned it from Gandhi and Thoreau and Jesus and every other great man who led those in the right against those with the might. Disobedience is in our DNA. We feel innate kinship with that disobedient spirit that tossed tea into Boston Harbor, that sent Thoreau to jail, that refused to sit in the back of the bus, that protested a war in Vietnam. In that same spirit, I am asking you to disavow cultural correctness with massive disobedience of rogue authority, social directives, and onerous law that weaken personal freedom. But be careful, because it hurts. Disobedience demands that you put yourself at risk. Dr. King stood on lots of balconies. You must be willing to be humiliated, to endure the modern-day equivalent of the police dogs at Montgomery and the water cannons at Selma. You must be willing to experience discomfort. I'm not complaining, but my own decades of social activism have taken their toll on me. Let me tell you a story. A few years back, I heard about a rapper named Ice-T who was selling a CD called Cop Killer, celebrating ambushing and murdering police officers. It was being marketed by none other than Time Warner, the biggest entertainment conglomerate in the world. Police across the country were outraged, and rightfully so. At least one had been murdered. But Time Warner was stonewalling because the CD was a cash cow for them, and the media were tiptoeing around it because the rapper was black. I heard Time Warner had a stockholders meeting scheduled in Beverly Hills. I owned some shares at the time, so I decided to attend. What I did there was against the advice of my family and colleagues. I asked for the floor. To a hushed room of 1,000 average American stockholders, I simply read the full lyrics of Cop Killer. Every vicious, vulgar, instructional word. I got my 12-gauge sawed off. I got my headlights turned off. I'm about to bust some shots off. I'm about to dust some cops off. It got worse, a lot worse. I won't read the rest of it to you, but trust me, the room was a sea of shocked, frozen, blanched faces. The Time Warner executives squirmed in their chairs and stared at their shoes. They hated me for that. Then I delivered another volley of sick lyric brimming with racist filth, where Ice-T fantasizes about sodomizing 2 12-year-old nieces of Al and Tipper Gore. She pushed her butt against my... Well, I won't do to you here what I did to them. Let's just say that I left the room in echoing silence. When I read the lyrics to the waiting press corps, one of them said, "We can't print that." "I know," I replied, "but Time Warner's selling it." 2 months later, Time Warner terminated Ice-T's contract. I'll never be offered another film by Warner's or get a good review from Time magazine. But disobedience means you must be willing to act, not just talk. When a mugger sues his elderly victim for defending herself, jam the switchboard of the DA's office. When your university is pressured to lower standards until 80% of the students graduate with honors, choke the halls of the Board of Regents. When an 8-year-old boy pecks a girl's cheek on the playground and gets hauled into court for sexual harassment, march on that school, block its doorways. When someone you elected is seduced by political power and betrays you, petition them, oust them, banish them. When Time magazine's cover portrays a millennium nuts as deranged, crazy Christians holding a cross as it did last month, boycott their magazine and the products it advertises. So that this nation may long endure, I urge you to follow in the hallowed footsteps of the great disobediences of history that freed exiles, founded religions, defeated tyrants, and yes, in the hands of an aroused rabble in arms and a few great men, by God's grace, built this country. If Dr. King were here, I think he would agree. Thank you very much. That's Charlton Heston's speech, Winning the Cultural War, at the Harvard Law School Forum on Tuesday, the 16th of February, 1999. As
Good reason. Now, you will be the first to hear this, so people should listen closely. Right before I came to this set, I went to the post office, and I signed for a certified letter. I had a card in my post office box, and let me read you the contents of this letter. And you can see certified mail. It is postmarked from Wilmette, Illinois, and I can notice right away it was in his writing, Ben's writing.
What's the date?
Mailed on July 2nd, so that would be Friday, the day that this began. I already opened it, I already read it, obviously, and here's what it says. His writing, once again, his signature, 7/2/99. Quote, although I have not been a member of the World Church of the Creator since April 1999, due to my past public support of that legal religious organization run by Matt Hale, I find it necessary to formally break with the World Church of the Creator because I am unable and unwilling to follow a legal revolution of values, unquote. Benjamin N. Smith.
Well, read it again. What does that mean?
He is basically saying right here that we are a legal organization, and he has broken with the church. He breaks it with this letter, of course, because we are a legal organization, and he decided not to follow that path. It's very clear what this means. It means that we have always promoted legal change in this country. We bear no responsibility for this.
Take a look at the quote to the New York Times that appeared on the 6th of July. And he said, we believe we can legally come to power through nonviolence, but Hale says if they try to restrict our legal means, then we have no recourse but to resort to terrorism and violence. Now, did you tell him that or not?
What I told him, and what our church does preach, is that we must have freedom of speech in this country. And if the Constitution is suspended, say Bill Clinton tomorrow puts troops out in the streets and said the Constitution is null and void, the people have the right and duty to fight back by what means they can for their rights. That is firmly in the history of this country. Our founding fathers said we would have that right if a tyranny attempted to eliminate the Constitution of the United States. So who's being loyal to the Constitution?
But Matt,
I am.
But you're avoiding the point. I mean, you teach hate against ethnic groups and people of color and non-whites, and then you want to say I have nothing to do with the guy who I preach to going out and killing them.
Many people teach hatred. People teach hatred of those who perform abortions, but they're not all liable when someone, or criminally responsible when someone kills an abortion clinic doctor. People teach hatred of those who burn American flags. But if somebody did that
When was
wouldn't hold the whole country responsible.
Was it true that you spoke to Smith in the days before he went on his killing spree? What did he tell you? What did you tell him? What were the exact words between you that might have led him to this?
There were no words that might have led to this, as far as I know, except he did tell me he very much wanted me to have my law license. He made that very clear. He said, "What do you think, Pontifex?" And that's what he called me, a title of respect. It means leader in Latin, and that we use the Latin language some in our church, like the Catholic Church. But in any case, he said, "I want you to get that license, Pontifex. What do you think? Will we get the license?" And I said, "I sure hope so, brother. I sure hope that we have it. We have the right to it. And if we don't, we'll take it to the Illinois Supreme Court. Either way, we're going to win this fight."
Do you believe in any of the laws of physics involving cause and effect? I mean, don't you see any? Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking at you.
I'm looking at you telling this guy that people who are black don't belong in this country and should be out. I hear you telling him that that Jews are some sort of subclass, that Asians don't belong here, and then he goes out and shoots them. It seems to me there's a cause and effect in play.
Well, I'll show you why. I'll tell you again why there isn't, for a different reason. Ben Smith was certainly a racist before he ever even heard of the World Church of the Creator. There is plenty of evidence for this. He had racist activities in high school. He had racist activities before he ever met me. And furthermore, our teachings in their entirety, if you read them, and most people don't bother to read them, they might read a snippet here or there and take it completely out of context, which has happened already since I've been giving these interviews, various sources. But the complete picture is one of nonviolent change, just the same as Catholics practice, Protestants, Jews, and everybody else.
Matt Hale, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we have a former Justice Department official, Mark Levin, with us. We have Congressman Gary Ackerman. As you know, they fight about some things. I think they may tend to agree about this. Take a look at Matt Hale's legal liability for the actions of Ben Smith. More after this quick break. Stay with us. Smith, he's the guy who was a follower of Matt Hale and went on the killing spree last weekend, killed 2, injured 9. Mark Levin and Gary Ackerman are still with us. Mark, you were a member of the United States Justice Department. Is the country helpless in the face of Matt Hale's?
No, and let me tell you something about this pathetic coward and why he's running.
So are you.
Let me tell you about why you're now turning your back.
That's what the Jews are, the hateful people.
Why don't you let me finish talking? I don't think you're pure white. We can look into that if you really want to follow your tree.
Oh, well, what are you, pal?
But Matt, let me tell you something. Matt,
I don't think that's the right approach,
Matt,
Mark, but
Matt,
I agree with your sentiments.
Gary, let me just speak to him a second. Matt, here's what I know as a former Justice Department official. If you were egging this guy on, if you were conspiring with him, if you were abetting or aiding him, if you were nudging him on behind the scenes, and I don't see you turning down flatly what the New York Times said, you're dancing all around it, then you could well be liable. You're turning your back on one of your disciples. It's a very dishonorable thing.
Crime. And I would take a polygraph to prove that. I would take a polygraph any time to prove I never egged him on.
Are you denying flatly the quote in the New York Times in which Smith says, Hale says, that's you, that we will have to resort to violence if they will not, I guess meaning the government, will not observe our rights?
I don't know if the quote is accurate or not, but obviously, we as free citizens, have the right to oppose the elimination of the First Amendment.
Is there any?
What are you, communists?
Is there any?
What are you, communists?
Is there any
Jewish
legislation?
Communists. That's exactly what we have here.
Oh, Matt, calm down. Gary, is there any legislation that
I get mad when someone accuses me of committing crimes.
Hey, Matt, 2 people are dead. 9 people were shot by somebody who follows you. Gary Ackerman, can you prosecute this guy or not?
Well, let me tell you what I think we have here.
Gunned down?
Let me tell you what I think we have here. This horrible person has presented us with a worst-case scenario test of our constitutional freedoms. He represents something that to me is the vilest, the evilest of any kind of individual intent that we have seen throughout history. He is the embodiment of that pure hate.
I consider that a compliment from you.
Yes, I'm sure you do. But that being said, sir, let me tell you, as much as I hate what you're saying, as much as I resent everything that you stand for, that you have a right as an American to your opinion.
No, but Gary,
that being said, Matt, you don't have the right to shine the shoes of the people that you hate.
But
You are a
Gary, if I can get you
You have
on
the right
the
to your
point,
opinion.
please, for a second.
You have the right to your opinion.
Gary, the question is not whether he can hold these opinions, but that in expressing them to someone like Ben Smith, who not only killed a couple people but killed himself, can he have criminal liability?
It's possible.
He might have criminal liability. What we are coming to understand now as a society and a nation is that even with freedom of speech and freedom of expression, that words have consequences. And when those consequences are the destruction of lives and the commission of crimes, that as a society we are going to have to come to grips with the nexus between the two. If there is a way to prove and to demonstrate that Mr. Hale inspired and provoked people such as Mr. Smith to take the actions that he obviously did, then we're going to have to make a decision that there is a criminal liability.
Mark Levin, the thing that confuses me about
That's
this,
correct,
we followed a case not long ago in which a guy in Michigan was convicted of a criminal charge for swearing in his river rafting trip. And yet Matt Hale can preach hate to Ben Smith. Ben Smith can go out and act on those thoughts, and Hale's in the clear. I don't get it.
I can't square all these I can't fix all what happens in these state courts and all, but what Matt Hale knows and what I know and what the United States Justice Department and that state attorney general knows is that if he had his finger in this, and they're going to interview people, they'll investigate it, and while he's showing up on all these TV shows, he doesn't denounce it flat out. If he had some role in provoking this, I'm not saying you did, Matt, but for your sake, you better hope you didn't. You better hope you didn't.
Mark, wait a second.
I happen to think you're
Mark,
a coward.
how could it ever be proved when Smith is dead? Hang on, Gary.
Because I'll tell you, John, because guys like Matt Hale, they don't whisper in Benjamin Smith's ear. They yell at the top of their lungs to any miscreant, anybody else that they can bring in under their roof. If he said something to Smith, he probably has said something to others. They may have been in his presence. Who knows? But what we need here, Mr. Hale, is a thorough investigation before we dismiss this as a quaint First Amendment issue.
Gary Ackerman, it looks like Matt's position is...
I wanted to ask Matt a question, John.
All right, go ahead.
Matt, do you have any sense of sympathy for the lives that were taken by your friend?
Certainly, if I were a family member, I would
not if you were a family member. If you are you, Matt.
Our church, whether you like it or not, our
Matt,
church
answer
has
the
compassion
question.
only for our own people. The other races are simply not our concern, and they weren't worth the life of this one man.
He didn't answer his question.
I think he did.
He
Mark.
keeps talking about his church. We're asking you as a human
Final words after this.
I think that is something that should be suggestive of a problem, because here in Astoria, we have a main plant here, no longer generating any sort of electricity. There was a major power supply for a long time, and the point is that we're not talking about that. When we say the company is generating electricity,